Okay, I'm going to kick off with having our panelists introduce themselves. So, my best buddy today, Neha, kick it off.
Hi, everyone. My name is Neha. My pronouns are she, her. I am tan-skinned, got some really curly hair with some wispy whites that I haven't been able to dye lately. I've got a vintage GitHub shirt. It's a little spooky with some drip on it, and it's glow in the dark, but we're not going to be testing that out today. And I've got some jeans and my typical Rothy's. I am a VP of engineering here at GitHub. I'm based in San Francisco, which in the Mission, if you're curious. And I've been at GitHub for 6.5 years, but it feels like eons.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yagao, and my pronouns are she, her, and I am an Asian woman with black hair, black round glasses. I'm wearing a black bomber jacket and a light color blue jeans, and I am a researcher here at GitHub on the customer research team. I've been conducting research for Copilot since I joined, and next month I will be celebrating my 2 years Hubverse.
Woo!
Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Skylar Anderson. My pronouns are he, him. I'm wearing tan pants, a blue button-up, and a black hoodie. I'm a principal product designer based in San Diego, and I've been at GitHub about a little over 2 years. The first year I was focused on designing for repositories, and the past year has been all about Copilot.
Hello everyone, my name is Rachel, pronoun she, her. I am based in Austin, Texas. I am a white woman wearing jeans, a pixelated Mona shirt that says LGTM on it, and it's a black long sleeve. I lead up our design infrastructure team. You got to hear from Katie and Alexis today. I'm a proud mama of them. Like I said, I'm based in Austin, Texas, and I've been at GitHub for about 2 years.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Rachel, I'm going to pick on you for the first question. So, we have engineering, product design, design systems, user research represented on this panel. Could you share some of the techniques and principles that we apply at GitHub that you think lead to successful collaboration?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our company principles is better together. And I know it kind of sounds cheesy, but it's true. So we largely have what we call EPD teams, engineering, product, and design teams, and I kind of like to think of them as like a three-legged stool. If one of them is not working functionally, you might like topple over, or if one's missing, you're falling out of your seat. And so I think it's really important to have that strong EPD relationship and figure out what are the customer problems that you're trying to solve, how are you doing that together. And the way that our team on design infrastructure does this, and one kind of tactic that we use is demos, not memos. So how can we show our work in progress through a lot of videos or Slack videos back and forth to each other? And I think it's been really great to be able to amplify our work with each other, but more broadly to our engineering and product partners. Be like, what do you think? Is this hitting the mark? Are we solving the right customer problem? Are there any engineering considerations that I need to think about? And especially in an async culture where you have someone in Pacific time and then someone also in an EU time zone, it's really hard to find hours together. So that's been a really great way to share the work and get feedback and kind of create alignment and clarity through demos, not memos. I'm curious, Neha, what your take is on this.
Yeah, I think that from an engineering perspective, when it comes to creating collaboration, first of all, I kind of want to point out that if you think about GitHub as a product, right, we are fostering open source, and so naturally the tool is going to has been imbued with wanting to create collaboration, and so using GitHub allows us to do that as well. And so we have everything in issues when it comes to job descriptions or coordinating tickets or just kind of sharing information or announcements. On top of that, especially from the engineering side, the ratios are a little bit different between design and engineering, and so naturally, right, we're going to be, if on a good day, maybe 8-to-1 ratio, but probably a little bit more sometimes. And so there's a natural gravitational pull between one kind of outnumbering design or product, and also where GitHub is a developer tool, right? And so it's naturally for us to like have main character energy when it comes to like making it about us. And the important thing is, if we're gonna foster collaboration with other folks, we need to be the ones to also create that space in order to make those collaboration touch points happen. And if you're not conscious about that and you're not like actively thinking about how you can do that better, it won't happen. And so that's a really important thing that I try to lead. I try to role model that in my teams, and I try to create that.
Thank you both. Okay, next question. I'm going to put that over to Skylar. How do you think working on a developer tool influences the way that we work? And we want to hear both the good and the not so good.
Yeah, the main character energy. I like that analogy. Well, and the good, I mean, the nice thing about it is that we use GitHub to build GitHub. And so when you're a designer, that means you can take advantage of your colleagues and yourself, even often as a developer, to really understand what's important. And you can find data on sort of either side of the development process. Like, we often ship to staff before we ever ship to customers. And so if things go wrong, like and you're disrupting the critical flow of using GitHub, you're likely to hear about it. And fortunately, we have a great culture of being open and honest and giving that critical feedback. But even earlier in the process, before you even get into like using Figma and drawing the rectangles, you can often observe your colleagues and talk to them and develop an understanding of what's important and sort of fast track your perspective. The downside of that is because it is so easy to get data that is actionable and get you on the right track, that it's also easy to get kind of complacent or maybe overconfident in the direction that you started on. And so it's important that you partner early on with folks in product and research to make sure that you're taking into account not just the perspective of developers at GitHub, but the diverse mindset of developers across the world.
That is a great segue for me to ask a question from Ya. Could you share some of the practices that, as a user researcher, we use when working with teams that help us keep customers at the center of our practice?
Of course, thanks, Anna. I hold this question near and dear to my heart, so I will try to keep this short. First of all, I want to share a couple numbers that we're very proud of. First of all, last year alone, our customer research team heard from about 7,600 of customers, and among which about 45 hundreds of customers directly participate in our Copilot or AI research. We are a tiny, mighty team of 7, so we know we cannot do it all. We have to scale ourselves and enable our teams to do research on their own. So we did 2 things. First, we built a customer panel. Right now have about 4,000 of participants signing up. And we didn't just throw over the fence to our team. We actually built very careful, like a library of self-serve resources, office hours, and trying to making sure they have the structure to make a meaningful interaction with our customers. And our amazing designers, they are running insightful customer feedback sessions on their own that really frees up the researchers to take on more strategic and foundational project. And this year, we are joining force with our design team to launch our inclusive research. Rachel, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's a program that I'm really super proud about, the collaboration between accessibility design and research. So within the accessibility community and the disability community, there's a great phrase, nothing about us without us. Yes, make sure I got that right. And it's really about how do you bring folks with disability into the ideation, the design, and the development process. And so last year at our Looks Good to Me design conference, we brought in a customer panel of 5 individuals that use assistive technology. And like the team was so excited to finally get access to folks that they didn't know how they used GitHub, and was really like enlightened by some of the challenges that they had. And so we wanted to build on that momentum and that energy and really get in the mindset of developers with disabilities. And so from that was kind of the origin story of building up our inclusive research panel. So we went from 5 to 150 folks with disability on our panel that we can easily access and tap for feedback. And I think one of the things that I was really proud of is, on GitHub, we have a lot of lists of pull requests, lists of PRs, and it looks simple, but there's a lot of metadata in that, and we've worked with our accessibility design team, our primer component team, our product design team within issues and PRs to really develop out a robust list view component and pattern, and tested that with that panel. And we got a lot of really great feedback. So I think being able to make sure that we're including those folks at the ideation and that design and development process and shifting left has been really valuable for us in terms of kind of collaboration and the impact that we can have on the product.
Awesome, thank you. So another question for Skylar. I wanted to hear from you as a designer that's been working on GitHub's AI products over the last year. What skills do you believe designers need to work with AI effectively?
Yeah, so I've worked on Copilot for a little over a year, and I think the main new skill that the designers need to develop is effectively like an intuition about how the models work. And you can develop that by effectively using them as much as you can, and not necessarily like just signing up for Claude and chatting away to see how it works, but using the model in a way or in a context as close to the domain as possible that you care about. And so that could mean just like porting some documents over that reflect some of the use cases that are important to you, or manually typing in context and trying to reflect back some of the use cases that were previously infeasible, but now, thanks to the technology, are feasible. At GitHub, a lot of our designers are engineers or curious in writing code, so often for us that means writing our own prototypes to test things like tool use or conversational agents or generative UI. And that sort of helps us on this journey where I think many people in the space hit this moment of almost enlightenment, where you start to cross this threshold of seeing many problems as being solved by a deterministic system, and increasingly it's now a probabilistic system. And once you cross that threshold, to Sam's metaphor, you start to see, you now wield this new hammer, and you start to see everything as a nail. And so that leads into the more traditional design skills where there's a lot of hype, a lot of energy, a lot of colleagues are like, we could do this, and we could do this, and we can do this, and a lot of solutions. But you can't do all of them. If you really look at any product, you could redefine a product to be entirely AI native and AI first, but you can't, well, at least not a company like GitHub could do that quickly. So you have to lean on the traditional design skills of partnering with product and research in order to discover and validate the products that are, or the problems, excuse me, the problems that are most valuable. That you can talk to customers yourself and develop an understanding and empathize with them directly about what's important with them. That you can then go back to Figma and represent and design an artifact that reflects your understanding and a solution to the problems that you understand it. And that you can then bring that into the company and talk about it and have some conviction based off your understanding about the technology and your understanding about the users and what's important to them, and that you can bring it all together and deliver something with confidence. And then even at that point, it's new technology and it's still very hard to get right. So you can't ship it and know that it's going to be right. You do have to follow through and sort of own the outcome and make sure that what you were intent on solving, that you actually solved. And so continuing that relationship with research to make sure that what you brought into the world actually delivered the outcome that you set about, and you didn't just ship a toy effectively, which I think is all too easy with AI.
I think I'd love to hear from Yara on this one.
Yeah, I mean, Skylar, what you just said really resonates with research. I think research really has the responsibility to share our learnings, our success, and even our failures often and open. And especially at the current stage of AI, we require to do that. We have to share our experience together and navigate through this together. I think for research, it's really important to shed light to the areas that AI are doing great, but also helping our AI practitioners to build trust with AI users. And let's be honest with ourselves, not everyone is embracing AI at the moment. And to me, it's a great opportunity for us to understand the concerns or even fear behind that, right? And how can we address that, and how we can, as a researcher, to making sure we are building and using AI responsibly, and we are creating the value for our end users.
And from an engineering perspective, I think it's really important to recognize that, as I was saying before, engineers think that, because they're developers, they might want to create tools just for themselves, but they don't necessarily have the skills to think beyond what we do or think about end-to-end stories. And there are literally people who are trained to do that, and those are our designers and our researchers. I think a great example of that, especially in the AI space, is that, if you think about it, my engineers, I might have someone on the issues team or the PRs team. Those are like different tabs for you, right? I have entire teams that are behind that, and they will think about like, okay, cool, this is what we can do for AI in this issues tab, and this is what we can do for AI in this PRs tab. And maybe they're thinking about the adjacent sides. But when it comes to that end-to-end story, right, we turn to Skylar, and we're like, hey, how do we think about the entire vision around this? How can we improv, instead of just solving a tiny problem or a major problem in our engineers' eyes, how do we solve end-to-end problems? And so it's just absolutely paramount for us to pair with design and research and know when to pull them in. And as a leader who oversees a lot of engineers, right, I need to help them understand when to pull them in, and I need to teach them what it looks like for good collaboration. And so I think it's absolutely important for us to have them in this space, and they've proven their value many times over.
Thank you for sharing your range of perspectives there. I think that was really helpful for hopefully people starting to work in the space or already working in this space to hear. So just with a reminder, we can head over to audience questions if there are any. If you forgot to think about them, I have one more question that I can ask, but I'll just give a moment. Has anyone got any questions from the audience?
If you raise your hand, we'll get a runner with a mic.
We have a mic that can run over. I'm gonna ask one more question, and then in the meantime, we do have a question. Thank you, Cole.
How do you get your organization to value inclusive design engineering?
Let me just make sure I understood the question. How do we get our organization to value
inclusive design engineering, and design systems? And by value, I mean actually put resources towards it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd like a few folks to contribute to that, but I'll start because I felt like it was a huge part of my responsibility stepping into leading the design org to ensure that even before that, to be honest, building our design infrastructure team, I knew that working on design systems is, it's not going to solve all the problems. It's not going to guarantee your product is meeting those accessibility standards and usable and a great experience for everybody. But I knew that it was one of the mechanisms through which we could influence and build an accessible experience for folks. I think it took a mix of internal champions, I also think it's hearing from our customers, honestly, that was really important to them. And I think it's also connected with our values as GitHub, wanting to be the home for all developers. And there's a lot of work that we need to do to really get there. And then I think some of the work that we've done to sometimes talking about this work externally influences how companies work internally. It's hard. I feel like it's honestly impossible to watch some of the accessibility series that we made with interviews with people with disabilities and not realize how important this work is. So I don't think there's one silver bullet. I think it's working on that internally, aligning that with what you're getting feedback from those customers, and then using your external brand influence to also influence that, as well as it having to be part of your values and connecting to your mission as a company.
I have thoughts.
Yeah. Good.
Well, I'm glad that Diana got to answer, because this has been like a huge part of her career here at GitHub, and I don't think that we would have had as successful of a design systems team without her. So you're hearing straight from the source. But pardon? Preach. And like, as someone who is standing by and kind of being able to witness it, we're going to talk about this a little bit more on our talk on Thursday. So I'm trying not to reveal all of the secret sauce of our talk. But I think that, when it comes to valuing the value that they bring to the table, I think there's like peers that can value, there's leadership, and then there's like the ultimate, which is like funding, right? I think the ones that I wanted to talk about are around, from an engineering perspective, we're trying to figure out, so having a design system can also introduce friction sometimes, right? Because there's a lot of like resolution that we need to do, and we need to like go back, and we can't just like cowboy everything that we want to do now. And so like, what is the value for us? And having that consolidated component library allows us to build faster eventually, right? And so starting to see and tying back every single time, being able to have a consistent system or a system that's invested in to make those components accessible, and all of a sudden engineers don't have to like manually do that for every single thing that they do. Tying those kinds of examples of solutions back to the work that they don't have to do anymore is like a huge win for us. And so those are like, that's definitely like what speaks our language on the engineering side, is like, I don't have to pick up this ticket anymore. And so I think that's like the easiest win, is being able to tie those two things together.
Maybe one thing to add there is like, how can you as a design systems practitioner speak the language of the business and talk about the value there of like the productivity that it saves? Can you quantify the consistency and the usability of the product? Are there ways that you can find evangelists, maybe tie yourself to a strategic initiative that the company cares about, and say, we made this experience better by X through leveraging a design system, and this is the output, this is the sentiment that we're hearing from users. I found that many design systems that I have worked on, that has been a pretty good way to show the value of that, in terms of, can you strategically align yourself or your system to something that the business cares about, and then how can you quantify those metrics to show the value of that system to help build that business case a bit better.
Thank you very much. Did you want to add something? Yeah, you like hesitate. No. I think we have time for like one or two more questions. Oh, okay. Rachel, we've got this person over here. Cole. Get it. Run. Oh, there's two. Okay. We'll go to you and then you.
Thank you. So I've heard some AI leaders say something like, use AI to automate the boring stuff so that humans can do, the more interesting, in-depth things. And I was just wondering what your all opinions are on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I would say GitHub is somewhat unique in our perspective on how AI can augment humans. I think the space is really active, especially within developer tools, where many research labs are trying to not replace humans, but are being pretty aggressive about AIs being very active in, for example, going all the way from issue to pull request, which leaves, opens the question, like, where does the human fit in that process? But I'm really proud of the work we've done, like with Next, for example, where we have a very similar product, but a key difference there is the amount of steerability provided through the interface, where the human doesn't just sit there and watch code be generated with no control over the output, but the human actually guides that generation as it's happening. And I think that speaks to maybe an unwritten principle that we have about GitHub and the importance of the tooling existing to augment humans, and that humans are still in the loop. And if there are opportunities to improve the efficiency of a human, if there is a mundane task that can be consolidated or made more efficient through the technology, we'll absolutely pursue those. And I think a common class of that is, especially on GitHub. GitHub is a very, I would say, data-dense environment. There's a lot going on, especially if you work at a large company like us. Like, we have around 6,000 repositories. and around 3,000 employees, I think. And so the general experience for us using the tool is very data dense. And so things you might not think of as mundane tasks are just like looking at what are the issues that are relevant to you across all the repositories that you work in. And that is mundane, but it still requires a judgment call. And now the AI can help you understand sort of the semantics of large amounts of issues and make it easier for you to dive in and start your day. And I don't think that's at odds with the human and their job, but it is making them more efficient and understanding something that was otherwise inaccessible to them just because of the scale of all that information. And a site like GitHub, for companies like us at our scale, there's a lot of opportunities like that where people kind of just accept the status quo of using the internet as a data-dense procedure of like looking through index pages, to click on detail pages, to click on another index page, to perform a search. And I think a lot of the promise of using this technology is to make that easier. So if you have a question or you're trying to find something, that it's more readily available to you and you're not clicking through and doing searches and trying to figure it out in the traditional sense.
I want to add something from research. I've been working with our field team and directly with our enterprise customer for a while. And there's definitely customers in the camp of like, oh, we need to save time for, and bring a business value. But also I think it's only really important for us to understand, using AI is not all about productivity. It's really improved the overall developer experience and happiness. And that is really important. We have a framework to think about that and how we raise the bar of our work instead of just like saving time, free up time, and focus on productivity. Our next team, research team, and our customer research team, and even our partner at Microsoft, we've been thinking about this for a long time, very hardly, and we're constantly sharing our research. So if you're interested, go out to our GitHub blog and check out some of the research blog posts we have on this topic.
I'll also add that, it's interesting, when Skylar was answering, he said that technology can help you solve these problems, and he didn't necessarily say AI, and I think there's like a really important part here, which is that, at least for me personally, when I think about you go onto a page and you're able to find information where you expect it, that's like, to me, an automation. And like having a breadcrumb for where you need to go to next is like an automation. And like technology in general is made to lower that barrier and get you to where you need to go next. And AI is absolutely one piece and one way to solve that problem, especially with respect to taking like in context that you may not be able to access as easily. But in general, we're all just trying to create automations to make you more productive in general. And so I think that it's kind of like yes, like AI can automate and allow you to solve harder problems and focus on the things that you want to focus on. So can other ways to implement technology. And also AI, just as Yas said, can provide more than just automations. It can make you happier too, and make you feel like you're not trying to solve this problem alone.
Thank you so much. I think we'll have to be quick on the answers with this one because we're at time, but let's take this one last question and then we'll go to demo sessions.
Thank you. So I'm a designer at Postman, so I have two questions, so let me know which one I should ask. One is about design systems, and the other one is about designing for developers.
Pick the one you want answered the most.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that because I'm not actively working on design systems right now, and but I'm still focusing on designing for developers. So I wanted to know, like, since you're at GitHub, and how it is different designing for developers than designing for other non-developers, audience and users.
It's great. Just kidding. I'll let someone else answer.
I mean, I think developers are really opinionated, which is a good thing and also a hard thing to design for sometimes. Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes to maybe Ya's stats of like 4,600 people that we got to listen to for customer research. And like, how can we be centered in terms of like, what are those developers' needs? And everyone has different needs. A lot of the developers want to make their interfaces suit them for the productivity that they want and the workflow that they want. And so I think it's kind of been an interesting journey of how much customization do you put into the interface. You have to maintain that customization as people that build that. That's hard. So I think there's different aspects of how are you designing for most and giving opportunity for folks to kind of make the tool comfortable for their needs. And I think that's at least one of the challenges that I find particularly interesting.
Just one more little things to add here. Not only developers, your dear administrators. If you over customize something, it will be really hard for the administrator's role to maintain that. And that is a big role we've been doing research for. And I think when we're designing for AI features, we have to consider all developer, all adjacent roles in this ecosystem we have.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to answer questions, but I kind of have to on this one. I think, there's a couple of aspects. There's the internal experience of working at GitHub and being a designer or for developers or researcher or whatever your role is. It can be a little, I would say, intimidating a little bit because your colleagues are your customers or they think they're your customers, right? And we talked a little bit tonight about how we need to, that's helpful. It means we can often discover and solve our own problems, but we aren't representative of everybody all the time. And we can't possibly be as diverse as there's way more customers of GitHub than there is hubbers, right? So it's a thing that's good to sort of like ground you when you're a designer or a researcher working in another discipline that, hey, actually, I'm here for a reason and I know some shit that my friends over in engineering might not know, but also it's fantastic because you can collaborate and solve things together, and it's absolutely fantastic when you solve something and that engineer partner that you're working with is like, oh, hell yeah, this is way better. So, it comes with those pros and cons. But, we're, designing for, like, if you're a designer or a researcher, you got to know your customer, right? And so we have unique things that we need to learn about developers, just like anyone does if they're working, in finance or in health or whatever. Figma designs, they've got designers that design Figma for designers, right? I'm sure it's fun to be an engineer at Figma and your designers, wow, this is actually how I'd like this feature to work. I don't know, I'm just guessing. But yeah, it's always about knowing your audience. That's the really important thing is like know your customer, learn about them, and try and have a little bit of fun on the way. Yeah. Okay, I think we should release you all with I've got a few more words to say to the next social networking demo fun time. But before we do that, I just want to say a big thank you to our panelists.